Over the past 7 or 8 years, I've been in dozens, if not hundreds, of different classrooms at this point, and I've had the privilege to see a lot of different teachers teach. And what I've noticed is that there are some classroom management strategies that work really well for some teachers and not others. Well, the more I started to pay attention to this over the years, the more I started to notice a pattern. And I started to discover different classroom management styles and different kinds of teachers when it came to managing their classroom. Once I figured out my classroom management style, things really started to change for me. I was able to use strategies that worked for me and let go of the strategies that mainstream media told me was important to use without feeling guilty about it. I didn't feel guilty for the strategies that I used because I knew they were aligned to me. And I didn't feel guilty for the ones that I wasn't using because, again, I knew what worked best for me. So today we're going to take a quiz to discover what your unique classroom management style is. And at the end, I'm going to share your results. So make sure to stay tuned to the very end because you won't want to miss this. So with that being said, let's dive in.
Hey Teacher Bestie, my name's Helena and I'm the creator of the Present Teacher Podcast. I'm a first-year teacher coach, and in this podcast you are going to learn everything from simple, actionable classroom management, social emotional learning, and teacher wellness strategies. You know that impact you want to make in the classroom? Well, we're going to make it happen here.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you some questions, and what I want you to do is to write down what your answer is. There's going to be 5 choices: A, B, C, D, or E. So make sure that you are paying attention and that you are counting up how many you get of each letter, because depending how your answer goes is what your results will be at the end of the quiz. So let's dive in. Question number 1. When your classroom gets loud and off task, your first instinct is to A, revisit the procedure and remind students of expectations. B, talk to the group about how we're all feeling today. C, rethink my strategy or lay out what system isn't working. D, take a breath, stay calm, and quietly reset the energy. Or E, turn the behavior into a game or activity to re-engage them. Question number 2, and feel free wherever you're tuning in from to pause as you listen or to rewind and go back to re-listen to the questions. Question number 2. Your ideal classroom environment feels blank. Your ideal classroom environment feels A, structured, predictable, and well organized. B, warm, welcoming, and built on mutual respect. C, intentional, optimized, and efficient. D, calm, peaceful, and grounded. Or E, fun, expressive, and full of creativity. Question number 3. Your biggest classroom management strength is A, creating routines that run like clockwork. B, building strong relationships with students. C, designing proactive systems that solve problems. D, staying calm and consistent no matter what. E, making learning fun and keeping kids engaged. Question number 4. When it comes to rules and expectations, you A, post them clearly and refer to them often. B, talk them over with students and co-create them. C, tie them into a larger structure or system. D, reinforce them with tone, body language, and presence. Or E, find ways to move them to make them interactive or memorable. Question number 5, and this is your last question. On Sunday night, you are most likely to A, lay out your Monday procedures and routines. B, journaling about your students and checking in on their needs. C, reviewing classroom systems and tweaking what's not working. D, visualizing a smooth day and setting intentions. Or E, planning a fun kickoff activity or classroom theme. So, now that you've taken the quiz, I hope that you are honest, because there's no real right, wrong, or answer here. It's just figuring out more about yourself. So now that we've taken the 5-question quiz, and if you missed any questions, feel free to go back and re-listen. Go ahead and count up how many A's, B's, C's, D's, and E's you've got. What you might find is there might be two that are pretty close together. I personally am a tie between two different ones, so make sure to listen to both of them and choose whichever one feels most aligned with you. This is just a guide. This is not set in stone by any means, and you might find that you're just a combination of a few of these. I know I personally am. But take some time to collect and figure out which one you had the most answers, A, B's, C's, D's, or E's. And I'm going to go ahead and dive into the results. So if you answered mostly A's, that means you are the routine queen or king. You thrive on structure and systems. Your classroom runs like a well-oiled machine because you teach expectations clearly and consistently. Predictability is your superpower. You love having things, routines in place and having things in the same in a system, and your students feel safe and confident because of it. They know what to expect, they know where the boundaries are, and in fact, they might start to notice if things kind of go off path a little bit. And they are open and safe and they feel great about being in your classroom because of that predictability you create for them. So, your biggest strength as a routine queen or king is having routine building. You're great at building routines, you're great at building expectations and getting into a rhythm in the school day. Watch out for flexibility when things shift unexpectedly. Things like assemblies, last minute meetings, last minute observations can really throw off your flow in the classroom. So make sure to remind yourself to be flexible around these times and to really demonstrate that and be the model of that to your students, because oftentimes when you are so great at setting routines, your kids will pick up on that and they will be expectant of that routine and they might feel off if that routine is thrown off. So make sure to model a little bit of flexibility when something unexpectedly occurs so your students will follow suit. Here are some toolkit match or some procedures or some strategies I recommend you put in your toolkit for classroom management. Procedure slides. I have a ton of classroom procedure slides in my TPT store. I'll make sure to link them down below. Even if you want to look at those and how I personally run my classroom with my procedures as just an example of what it could look like, definitely go check those out. I personally am actually a routine queen. That's one of the things I resonate with. So I can relate to this. So procedure slides are really going to help you because they create a system. They create a routine where students know the expectations and they can run automatically without you. And so having things like procedure slides where the expectation is set, the standard is set, and your students automatically meet that requirement is really going to help them. The second thing is visual schedules. Having things where your students know what comes first and then next and then until it becomes a routine is really going to help them go throughout your day and go throughout the process. And first week plans. Make sure you are really making intentional first week plans on setting those expectations, those structures, those routines, those procedures in place, because being really intentional with your classroom management and going through the expectations the first couple weeks is really going to help you set a routine that you can use throughout the rest of the year. If you got mostly B's, you are going to be the relationship builder. So for you, everything starts with connection. You can be seen talking to your students in the hallway or during lunch, and you're really good at being that role model for students and just building that connection with them. You believe behavior is communication, and you invest deeply in knowing your students. When a student is disruptive, you can see past the disruptive behavior and not take it just as base value, but know that there's a deeper meaning behind why students are behaving the way they are. So for you, you're driven to find the root cause of behaviors and what's really going on below the surface so you can really help that student and connect with them in a personal level. You create a space where students feel seen, heard, and respected, which is absolutely amazing. So, your biggest strength is building rapport and emotional safety for your students. You are the go-to teacher. If students have a problem at home or something going on, you are the first person they think of. They have an easier time opening up to you. They really come back. Some of your students might come back to visit you. This is all the strengths of being a relationship builder. Things to watch out for is setting firm boundaries when needed. When you are building such close relationships with your students, it's easy to kind of gray some areas. So, being super intentional with setting those emotional boundaries on what's okay and what's not is really going to be important as you go into this year so that you're not finding yourself in sticky situations where maybe the lines have been crossed a little bit, or you're just emotionally giving to your students a lot to the point where at the end of the day, you're just a little bit exhausted because you're showing up for them and being that strong relationship or that strong mentor in their life. And don't worry, setting boundaries is good. If anything, you're showing your kids how to set good boundaries for them and their lives too when you do it. So don't feel guilty about it. Things to watch out for, setting firm boundaries when needed. And we talked about that. So now let's talk about toolkit match. So what are some things you can use in your classroom, some classroom management strategies I would recommend you look into? So the first thing is class meetings. Class meetings really helps build that strong relationship with your students, with each other, and with you. And having that community circle or that classroom meeting in the beginning is really going to help you build those connections. Like I said, not only from teacher to student, but student to student, which is something you're probably a very big advocate for. Having reflection tools, having your students reflect on the choices they make, and then also connection and check-ins, checking in with your students at the door, having them have an opportunity to check in with you throughout the day. All of these are going to be really important for you when you're moving forward with classroom management. And it's really going to help you rely heavily on those relationships and build those relationships so it can be the foundation of your classroom management moving forward. If you answered mostly C's, then you are the strategy slayer. So if you are the strategy slayer, honestly, I can relate. You see classroom management as a puzzle to solve, and you love optimizing it. You're constantly thinking of ways to tweak it and make it better, and you're thinking about how systems, tools, and classroom design can support behavior and learning. When it comes to setting up your classroom, you're not just thinking that, setting up your classroom is as simple as setting up a cute theme, but you're actually thinking of the function and how your classroom is going to run within those four walls. You're thinking of the functionality and how to get your students to help run the classroom without you. So you love optimizing, you're constantly tweaking, you're constantly looking for new ways to improve and make it just a little bit easier and to run a little bit more smoothly. And classroom design, and you can support, so you're constantly thinking about systems, tools, and classroom design and how they can support behavior and learning. So your strength is strategic systems, things like having music so your students can transition, using classroom jobs so your students run the classroom without you. Things like that are heavily prevalent in your classroom, and if they're not, then you might be kind of just naturally drawn to incorporate those into your classroom, and you're going to find them work really well with your particular teaching style. So things to watch out for is overthinking or constantly tweaking. It can, if you don't give your ideas a long enough time to really see if they work, you can easily dismiss them as not working, or you can kind of just get in this mind space where it's never good enough. And so you kind of need to move from this space of inspiration instead of desperation. By that I mean, instead of feeling like I need to get better at classroom management, my classroom management is horrible, I need to get better, I should be tweaking this, when you fill your head and your emotion and your energy with the shoulds, then it's going to feel very draining. Whereas if you go from the mindset of you know what? My classroom management is already really good, but I'm going to continue tweaking and getting better. And I'm only going to really go for the strategies that light me up or get me excited or, ooh, wouldn't that be cool? Or, ooh, that would be fun. I'm going to try that for a little bit and see if it works. And if it doesn't work, then that doesn't have any reflection on who I am or my worth as a teacher. It just means that strategy isn't going to work in my classroom, and that's okay. There's plenty of strategies out there. So making sure to have that mindset shift, you could tell like I'm speaking from personal experience here, um, of remembering that your worth isn't tied to whether or not the strategies and the systems you create. As a teacher, they're not tied at all. If anything, you're just getting better. You're already doing great. You're just tweaking and improving and making it better. And every year, it's kind of like a fresh start of like finding new things that might really work for you. So, with that being said, like I said, make sure you're not overthinking or constantly tweaking to the point of exhaustion. Know that you're doing enough and your classroom management is enough. It's okay to tweak and improve as you feel inspired. Okay, so toolkits for you, toolkit match. Strategies I would recommend for you to try out are classroom jobs or job charts, seating plans, classroom systems planner. So things like having classroom jobs where your students are running the classroom for you is really going to be great here. Having transitions with music is going to be another great thing. Seating plans, so having seating charts or systems like that. And then a classroom systems planner, kind of just like a big planner of how you want your classroom to run. Stuff like that and having that planned out is probably something that's going to be really exciting for you to do because I'm guessing you're really into planning. So that might be something to check out. Now let's talk about mostly D's. If you answered mostly D's, then you are the calm anchor. So let's talk about what that means. So if you are the calm anchor, that means your energy sets the tone. You don't need to raise your voice. You're very calm, presence speaks volumes. You might even be soft spoken, a little more reserved, or a little more quiet. And you might have had teachers in the past tell you that could be a negative thing, but you actually use it to your advantage. Whatever tone you set for the class, your students match because they respect you so much. And you don't necessarily have to raise your voice or yell at your students. If anything, you tend to get calmer or quieter, and your students will then lean in and because you're being serious. So, students feel safe with you and regulated around you because you lead by example. You are showing them what it's like to move throughout your day in a calm, regulated state, and you're not afraid to model what it looks like when you go from a dysregulated state to a regulated state. You might have things that happen throughout the day that make you feel overwhelmed or frustrated, just like any other teacher does, but you're not afraid to model to your students, hey, I'm feeling frustrated right now. I need some time to take some deep breaths. And you do that, and you're actually showing your students what it's like to calm yourself and to get yourself in a neutral space before you move forward. So, your biggest strength, and like I said, your students really connect with you because you're a safe place, because they know that you're not going to snap at them. You're going to remain very calm and neutral, and it's very soothing for students, and they feel very safe because they know what to expect from you. So, your biggest strength is emotional regulation and de-escalation. You're great at de-escalating situations, whether that's students or just situations in general. You're really good at taking a second, calm yourself, and then move forward. And so your kids are actually learning that from you. And you may not notice that, but if you pay attention to some of the strategies you naturally do to regulate yourself and de-escalate situations, your kids are naturally going to pick up on that. And you might see them actually mimicking that in, places like at lunch or at recess and stuff like that. So, things to watch out for is needing to assert boundaries clearly when necessary. It's easy when you come forward with this calm, neutral energy for people to assume that they can walk all over you or that you're going to be a pushover. But that's not the case. So, you have a great way of being able to set boundaries that are healthy for you and for your students. And I know as teachers, it can be hard for us to set boundaries because we feel guilty. But the reality is, when you're setting boundaries, most of the time it's to benefit your students. For example, if I set the boundary that I'm not going to work a ton of extra hours outside of teaching, um, because when I do, I show up in a dysregulated state. That's not a bad thing. That's actually benefiting my students in the long term. So being okay with asserting boundaries when necessary is going to be really important for you. So, your toolkit match or strategies I recommend for your classroom management toolbox are transition tools. So, how can you get your students to transition from one place to another in a calm, regulated state or at the voice level or energy you expect to have in the classroom? Call and response cues. How can you have your students calmly freeze what they're doing and respond to you so that it keeps and maintains that energy level that you feel aligned with? And then mindful routines, whether that's taking some breathing exercises, having your kids, watch a calming video when they come in from recess, having the first 5 minutes be a journal prompt, whatever it may be. But having those mindful routines in place in the classroom is really going to help you maintain that calm energy that you just naturally have as a teacher. So, the next one, if you answered mostly ease, then you are the creative connector. So, what that means is you're expressive, you're playful, and you're full of ideas. You love looking at what others are doing, taking it, tweaking it, and making it your own. Your classroom feels like an adventure. It's definitely not a whole group, everyone sits and you lecture the whole time. There's a lot of movement, there's a lot of play when it comes to education in your classroom. And students stay engaged because of it and because of your creativity. You kind of get a little bit bored when things feel very mundane or too consistent. So you like to mix things up, and because of that, your kids love learning and they love coming to your class because they love not knowing what's going to come next and seeing different ways that you're going to make this lesson or that day come to life. You love using things like themes, games, or storytelling to manage behavior, a lot of hands-on, manipulative, whole brain, whole learning, just different modes of learning, not just the traditional sit down and lecture. And you can apply that to actually how you manage your classroom as well. So, your biggest strength is going to be student engagement. Because you're really good at going from one thing to another, you're often really quick with your pacing and teaching. Um, when you are constantly turning things into a game or fun, adventure, stuff like that, students are naturally drawn to lean in, and you won't have as many disruptive behaviors occurring because of lack of engagement. That's not typically the struggles you are most likely going to have. Things to watch out for are creating consistent routines to back up the fun. There comes a point, and we're all different, and this is something I recommend that you learn and kind of just play with a little bit. Invite yourself to kind of step back and kind of figure out where that line is for you between having playfulness and consistency in the classroom. You might find that if you go too creative and too chaotic and too sporadic, your kids have a hard time regulating and knowing what to expect, and they might become a little dysregulated. So, coming up with a way to have a consistent routine or expectations, things that your students can still expect from a day to day, while also having the creativity of, just taking things and turning them into fun, finding that balance. And again, I can't tell you exactly what that balance is because I'm not you and we're all different and we all have to find that balance for ourselves. But kind of taking some time to really look at that and think, okay, where can I create consistency and routines and stability? And where can I let my creativity run wild? And just figuring out what that looks like for you. So, my toolkit match for you or classroom management strategies, I recommend you check out our gamified procedures, interactive slides, class themes, lesson themes, stuff like that. Really bringing learning to life is really going to help you teach in your natural element, and it's really going to help you manage your classroom and behaviors in that same way. So, I hope that was helpful. I'm curious, which one are you? Let me know in the comments or send me a DM. I would love to chat, and honestly, I'm curious how many of you following me are the same as me. So I'm curious. Yeah, let me know. If you want to take this classroom management a step further, I have a couple resources for you. First off, I would really love and appreciate if you could like, subscribe, follow wherever you're joining in, leave a review, tune in wherever you're tuning in from, because it really helps me reach more teachers and help them with their classroom management and help them figure out classroom management strategies that work best for them. So I would really appreciate if you could do that. Second thing, if you want just kind of a toolkit of different strategies you might try, I highly recommend you check out my classroom management guide. It's my free classroom management guide with my top 10 classroom management strategies that I personally use in my classroom. So if you're wanting some ideas on what this could look like, make sure to go check that out. It's free and in the description. The third thing, if you want me to give you all the templates, the done for you stuff to manage your classroom, and you kind of want to pick and choose what works best for you and your classroom management style, I definitely recommend the classroom management bundle. So this bundle has a ton of resources and different themes for my creative connectors who have a classroom theme and want their classroom management to match their classroom theme. I definitely recommend checking that out. Things like classroom procedure slides, classroom jobs, all of it I have in that bundle. And what I like about it is you can access that bundle with all of my resources together for a huge discount, or you can actually, it links to my TPT store, and you can actually look at individual resources if there's just a couple in that bundle that you really like, or you just simply want ideas on what running your classroom can look like, definitely go check that out, even for inspiration. If you're kind of wanting to know what, in a practical sense, some of these strategies I gave you and some of these resources I gave you, what that could look like in your classroom. The final thing I have for you is if you want me to walk you through some of the systems that you might incorporate into your classroom, I definitely recommend checking out the Present Teacher Circle. The Present Teacher Circle is my program for new and first year teachers to help them automate their classroom. But we start with classroom management, including there's 2 modules on classroom management, and there's even a 15-day challenge, classroom management challenge, on where every day I give you a different prompt on a classroom management strategy you can incorporate or a piece of your classroom management you might look at. And then I also give you a common scenario where a student is being disruptive, how I would personally handle it. So it's kind of like a behind the scenes look of me teaching without you actually seeing my kids' faces and seeing how I would go about handling things, some common scenarios in the classroom. So that's only the first step. We then go through different systems as well. So that's just the first piece. So there's classroom management, there's planning, grading, family communication, everything you're going to need to make those first few years of teaching easy and effortless and to a point where you don't have to stay late. You're not having the Sunday scaries. You're showing up excited and rejuvenated and just really ready to make an impact in the classroom. That's what this program is. Like I said, the first part, we focus heavily on classroom management. So if you're wanting the strategies, the practical, the templates, all of it, I definitely recommend starting there. But the beauty of it is you can choose any of the paths you want and you can focus on any of it. So let's say you want to start on classroom management, but then you really are struggling with planning or grading, you can jump to those sections and really start diving into that as well. So that's why I love this program so much. It's because it's very much a choose your own adventure, and I really give you strategies and you ideas on it, and I invite you to tweak them throughout the process, to that way your first few years are just way easier, especially compared to what mine were, and not as difficult as they need to be. So that wraps up everything. Honestly, I had a lot of fun recording this week's content. This was a lot of fun. Let me know if you want me to do more stuff on classroom management styles or teaching styles, because I always loved those personality quizzes growing up, and this has just been a lot of fun. Also, you might have noticed that the background has changed. We're actually renovating our house right now, so you're in my living room, and I actually kind of like it. So, anyways, thank you so much for joining me. As always, remember we are stronger together, and I'll see you in the next one, Teacher Bestie. Bye!
Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode. I hope that you were able to take away some value that will help you thrive inside and out of the classroom. It would mean the world to me if you could take 5 seconds right now and leave a review on this podcast. And if you found this podcast especially helpful, make sure to take a screenshot of this episode right now and tag me on your socials to let me know you're listening. As always, remember that we are stronger together. With all the love in the world, Helena, aka the Present Teacher. See you next time, Teacher Bestie.